Representatives from Canada Soccer are scheduled to appear before the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage Monday to testify about the ongoing pay equity dispute between the women's national team and the sport's governing body. The issue came to a head before the She Believes Cup campaign in February. After threatening a strike, the team played the tournament under protest. All of this is happening just months before the women's national team kicks off the biggest World Cup campaign in the team's history. A World Cup that will now have 3 times the prize money available compared to 4 years ago. Now, joining us more is the founder of TFC Republic and longtime reporter on Canadian soccer, John Molinaro. Good morning, John.
Hey, good morning, Matt.
John, let's talk about this. This discontent has been simmering for some time now. In fact, we spoke to you about this same issue last summer. What's happened since then that's left the women's national team players feeling so disrespected?
Well, the major thing, as you alluded to in February, when they were playing at the She Believes Cup, they found out that they were going to have their budget cut this year substantially. And now the men's team are also having their budget cut this year as well, but it hits the women far more profoundly because in roughly 4 months they're going to schedule to play in the World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. And so the women quite rightly pointed out that the men didn't have their budget cut last year when they were preparing to compete in their World Cup in Qatar. So the women, aside from the pay equity issue, which is still outstanding, they're really sort of fighting for equal treatment from Canada Soccer. They want the same resources and the same support, as they're scheduled to prepare for the World Cup. And just in general sense, I mean, they want to have, whatever the men have, they want to have as well, whether that's, travel upgrades or hotel sort of assignments, stuff like that. It's really, just fighting for the same treatment that the men are getting.
And just touch on that too, John, because it's some of those issues, but even when it comes to practicing, that the players didn't have enough players on the team at some training in order to have 11-on-11 scrimmages.
Yeah, that's right. So during the She Believes Cup, prior to the tournament, they held a pre-tournament training camp, but because of the cutbacks, they could only bring in a certain amount of players. They couldn't bring in the full squad. And so, normally when you practice during a training session, it's 11 versus 11 players, but they didn't have the full complement of players. So they had to draft in members of the staff to sort of round out the inter-squad game. So it's stuff like that that just points to sort of the inequity of the treatment that the women are getting and what they're fighting for, essentially.
Right. So the success of the women's national team, they won the gold medal in Tokyo, right? The men's, the first World Cup since 1986. There was a lot of talk about Canada finally becoming a soccer nation. How harmful are these disputes? Because it's not just the women, it's the men's team that does not have a collective agreement either. How harmful is this for Canada's credibility on the international stage?
Oh, really harmful. I mean, it's we're already seeing stories written by, The Guardian and the New York Times and, some pretty big publications, to sort of reporting on this sort of dispute. And so, the damage publicly isn't just sort of limited to what's going on here in Canada, but, people abroad are taking notice and reporting on this. And it doesn't sort of paint the best picture of Canadian soccer and the way Canada Soccer is dealing with its men's and women's teams. And I think the longer this goes, it's not just going to become, more of a bigger black eye. The relationship between Canada Soccer and the men's and women's teams, which is fractured at best right now, I think is only going to become even more irreparable.
And what has the Canadian team been able to learn from the U.S. team? Because the U.S. women went through this for a number of years, too, in a very similar fashion.
I think they can learn about the value of persistence because it took the U.S. women, roughly 6 years to get what they want, which was pay equity. So it was a long battle for the U.S. Women's team. And let's not forget, I mean, they had to do it while competing at Olympics, and they won 2 World Cups during that time. So I think the women have to the Canadian women can really learn the value of persistence from their American counterparts. Now, I think they'll have a little bit easier time of it just because I think things are trending in the direction in sports right now that, pay equity, it's inevitable that you can't really escape it.
Right.
But, the U.S. really had to fight for it. And so I think if there's anything that the Canadians can learn, it's just that the value of persistence and sticking with it and, sticking up for what you believe in.
We will see what we hear on Monday. John Molinaro, appreciate your time. Thank you.
You're welcome, Matt. Anytime.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.